High Admiral Vila Zyrax stood before the Hegemony Council, her crystalline appendages reflecting the soft azure light of the Grand Chamber. The recently concluded first contact with Earth had left her perplexed, and now she faced the task of presenting her findings to the most powerful beings in the galaxy. Esteemed Council, she began, her translator converting her harmonic speech into the standard galactic frequency, I present my analysis of humanity, the latest species to achieve faster-than-light travel. The massive holographic display behind her flickered to life, showing images of Earth cities, cultures, and most importantly, their military installations. Their technological advancement is remarkably uneven, Vila continued, gesturing to various data points. While they've mastered fusion power and gravitational manipulation, they still rely on chemical propulsion for many of their vessels. Most peculiar is their obsession with peace. The council members stirred, their various forms shifting with interest. Grand Arbiter Nolax, an ancient entity of pure energy contained within a quantum matrix, pulsed with curiosity. Elaborate, Admiral. Humanity has created thousands of organizations dedicated to maintaining peace. Their global communication network is filled with artistic works denouncing warfare. They've even established international laws limiting the development of certain weapons. Vila's appendages rippled with what her species considered amusement. Their military budgets have been steadily declining for decades. Ambassador Krill, representing the militant Kraxan Empire, clicked his mandibles in derision. Such behavior typically indicates a species ill-suited for the harsh realities of galactic politics. Vila nodded in agreement, but something nagged at the edges of her consciousness. During her brief interaction with human diplomats, she had noticed something in their eyes when military matters were discussed, not fear, but something else she couldn't quite identify. There is one additional observation, she added, almost reluctantly. Their historical archives contain an unusual amount of military documentation. They preserve records of every conflict, analyze every battle, and maintain detailed studies of combat strategies spanning their entire history. A species dwelling on past failures, Ambassador Krill dismissed. Common among the weak. Grand Arbiter Nolax pulsed thoughtfully. Perhaps. Or perhaps there is more to these humans than we perceive. Admiral, your recommendation? Vila hesitated for a fraction of a second. Based on available data, I recommend classifying humanity as a Category 3 civilization, minimal military threat, suitable for standard integration protocols. She paused before adding, however, I suggest maintaining elevated observation status. There are inconsistencies in their behavior that warrant further study. The council voted quickly, accepting her recommendation with little debate. Only Nolax seemed to share her unease, his energy form flickering with patterns that suggested deep thought. As the session concluded, Ambassador Krill approached Vila privately. The Empire has been seeking to expand its influence in that sector, he mentioned casually. Perhaps a small demonstration of power would help these humans understand their proper place in the galaxy? Vila felt her crystalline form vibrate with concern. The integration protocols are clear, Ambassador. No military actions against new species without Council approval. Krill's mandibles clicked in what might have been laughter. Of course, Admiral. Merely thinking aloud. He turned to leave but paused. Though I wonder, for a species so dedicated to peace, why do they maintain such detailed records of warfare? Why do their peace monuments always seem to double as war memorials? As Vila watched him leave, she accessed her personal data storage, reviewing footage from her meetings with human diplomats. She focused on their eyes during discussions of military history. Now she recognized what she had seen there, not fear, not pride, but warning. The humans weren't celebrating their wars, they were remembering them. They weren't afraid of conflict, they were afraid of necessity. Every peace treaty, every anti-war artwork, every military budget cut, they weren't signs of weakness. They were choices made by a species that knew exactly what they were capable of if pushed too far. Vila composed a private message to Grand Arbiter Nolox, requesting a confidential meeting. Perhaps it wasn't too late to revise their assessment. But before she could send it, alerts flashed across her consciousness. The Kraxan Empire had just deployed a battle fleet to the edge of human space. She stared at the tactical display, her crystalline form resonating with dread. The galaxy was about to learn a costly lesson about the difference between being peaceful and being weak. The Kraxan Empire's first strike against the human colony of New Horizon was meant to be a simple demonstration of power. Instead, it became a revelation that would reshape galactic warfare forever. Admiral Tyrax of the Kraxan fleet watched with mandibles twitching in anticipation as his ships approached the small colonial world. The planet housed merely 2 million humans, protected by what seemed to be minimal orbital defenses. Intelligence suggested their military response would be sluggish, disorganized, and ultimately futile. Multiple contacts emerging from the lunar shadow, his sensor officer reported. Small craft, likely civilian vessels attempting to flee. Tyrax clicked in amusement. Predictable. Let them run. It will spread fear through their territories faster than any broadcast. But something was wrong. The fleeing ships weren't running in panic, they were moving with precise coordination, maintaining perfect spacing as they accelerated away from the colony. Before Tyrax could process this observation, his tactical officer screamed. Energy surge. The civilian ships are dash. The fleeing vessels suddenly reversed course, revealing themselves as drone carriers. Each released dozens of smaller craft that moved with impossible agility, their trajectories defying standard combat algorithms. The Kraxan fleet's automated defense systems, calibrated for traditional attack patterns, struggled to track the erratic movements. Impossible, Tyrax muttered. Their technology shouldn't be capable of such maneuvers. Sir, they're not using advanced tech, his analysis officer reported, mandibles clicking rapidly. They're using minimal thrust bursts and gravitational slingshots. It's all basic physics, just, applied in ways we've never seen. The drone swarm split into smaller groups, each adopting different attack patterns. Some launched conventional missiles, while others released clouds of metallic debris precisely calculated to intersect with Kraxan ship trajectories. The debris wasn't meant to damage the ships, it was forcing them to adjust course, herding them into predetermined zones. Multiple wormhole signatures detected. The sensor officer's voice cracked with strain. They're behind us. The human fleet emerged from hyperspace in perfect attack formation. Their ships were smaller than Kraxan vessels, but they moved with devastating precision. Where Kraxan doctrine relied on overwhelming force and superior technology, these human vessels demonstrated an entirely different philosophy of warfare. Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the human flagship. A holographic image appeared on the bridge, showing a human commander. Admiral Rebecca Winters stood calmly, her dark eyes reflecting the same warning that Vila had noticed months ago. This is your only warning, she stated without preamble. Withdraw your forces immediately, or we will be forced to demonstrate why humanity chose peace. Tyrax's mandibles clicked in rage. You dare threaten the Kraxan Empire? Your species barely understands basic shield technology. We understand it well enough to know its weaknesses, Winters replied. Just as we understand that your ship's reactor shielding has an oscillating frequency of 0.03 Hz. A vulnerability you never fixed because no species had ever exploited it. Tyrax felt his blood run cold. That information was highly classified. How had they? Your cybersecurity encryption, Winters continued, still uses the same base algorithms from 3 centuries ago. We broke it within hours of first contact. Your tactical doctrine hasn't changed in 7 generations because it's always been sufficient. And your ship's neural interfaces can't process sensor data faster than 300 milliseconds, a lag we've been exploiting since this conversation began. Tyrak suddenly realized that during their exchange, the human fleet had been systematically maneuvering his ships into a complex three-dimensional grid. Each Kraxan vessel was now surrounded by precisely positioned drone clusters. "Last chance, Admiral," Winters said quietly. "Withdraw." Tyrax raised himself to his full height. "The Kraxan Empire does not retreat from lesser species. Open fire. Show these humans the price of defiance." The next 3 minutes rewrote galactic military doctrine forever. The human drones detonated in synchronized sequences, creating electromagnetic pulses perfectly timed to exploit the known shield frequency. Point defense systems, confused by debris clouds and electronic warfare, couldn't track the real threats. Human ships executed maneuvers that seemed suicidal until the moment they proved brilliant. When it was over, half of Tyrax's fleet was disabled, their neural interfaces overloaded by targeted data bursts. The other half had suffered critical systems failures from precision strikes at previously unknown weak points. Admiral Winters' image reappeared. "Your remaining ships have enough power for a single hyperspace jump. I suggest you use it to inform your empire that humanity's peace was a choice, not a limitation. We will not retaliate against this unprovoked attack, but neither will we allow any further aggression against our colonies." As Tyrax ordered the retreat, he realized humanity's greatest deception. They hadn't been documenting their wars out of fear or fascination, they had been learning. Every conflict, every battle, every mistake had been analyzed and understood. Their dedication to peace wasn't born from weakness, but from an intimate understanding of their own capacity for warfare. The galaxy had misread the warning signs. Humanity's art hadn't been crying out against war, it had been warning others not to provoke it. The Galactic Hegemony's War College on Centaurus Prime had never seen such attendance. Representatives from every spacefaring civilization crowded the ancient amphitheater, their varied forms creating a living tapestry of galactic diversity. They had come to witness something unprecedented, a human military lecture. Commander James Okonjo stood before the assembled dignitaries, his dark skin contrasting with the crisp white of his United Earth Defense Force uniform. Behind him, holographic displays showed footage from the New Horizon incident, now infamous throughout the galaxy. "The fundamental flaw in modern galactic warfare," he began, his voice carrying clearly through the universal translators, "isn't your technology. It's your assumptions." The audience stirred uncomfortably. A Nexian scholar raised their tentacle. "Clarify. Our military doctrines are based on millennia of experience." "Exactly," James smiled. "Experience fighting opponents who think like you do. Tell me, when was the last time any of your species faced a truly novel military challenge?" Silence fell across the amphitheater. The commander continued, advancing his presentation to show various human conflicts throughout history. Humanity's military evolution wasn't linear. We didn't simply develop better weapons and stronger defenses. We had to constantly adapt to new challenges, new environments, new ways of thinking. Every war we fought was different from the last. The holographic display shifted to show ancient human battles, guerrilla warfare against superior forces, naval engagements where smaller fleets triumphed through superior tactics, aerial combat that revolutionized three-dimensional warfare. While the galaxy perfected a single way of war, we were forced to master hundreds. Our weakness became our strength. Without overwhelming technology, we had to innovate. Without superior numbers, we had to optimize. Without natural advantages, we had to understand. A Kraxan military advisor clicked his mandibles in frustration. "Yet you claim to desire peace. You reject the warrior's path." James's expression grew serious. "We desire peace precisely because we understand war so intimately. Each innovation in warfare taught us its true cost. Every advancement in military technology showed us what we stood to lose. We chose peace not from ignorance of war, but from mastery of it. The display changed to show the New Horizon battle from multiple angles. Notice how our ships never established a fixed formation. That's because we don't think in terms of formations. We think in terms of opportunities. Every piece of debris becomes a potential shield. Every gravitational field becomes a potential accelerator. Every enemy maneuver becomes a vector we can exploit. He zoomed in on the drone swarms. These weren't just weapons. They were problems for the enemy to solve. Each drone followed different protocols, forcing defensive systems to constantly readjust. We didn't just attack ships, we attacked decision-making processes. A hegemony tactical expert raised an appendage. But surely such complex strategies increase the risk of failure? The more elements in play, the more points of potential error. Ah, James smiled, now you're asking the right question. This brings us to humanity's greatest military innovation, embracing chaos. The display shifted to show Earth's weather patterns, economic systems, and social networks. Our entire civilization exists within chaos systems. We learned early that perfect control is impossible. Instead of fighting chaos, we learned to work with it. Our military doctrine doesn't require perfect execution, it expects and exploits imperfection. He brought up tactical data from the battle. When your ships detected our drones, they followed standard evasion protocols. Predictable responses to perceived threats. But our threats weren't threats, they were invitations to make specific choices. Every evasion moved your ships exactly where we wanted them. The Kraxan advisors' mandibles twitched violently. You turned our own doctrine against us. No, James corrected gently. We showed you its limitations. The galaxy has spent millennia perfecting a single approach to warfare. We spent millennia learning that no single approach is perfect. The display showed the final moments of the battle, where disabled Kraxan ships were allowed to retreat. This is why we choose peace. Not because we fear war, but because we understand it too well to glorify it. Every weapon we design shows us new ways to die. Every tactic we develop reminds us of war's cost. Every victory teaches us the price of failure. He looked across the assembled beings, his eyes carrying that same warning that had puzzled so many. Humanity doesn't maintain peace through weakness. We maintain it through the wisdom earned in blood and fire. We don't reject war because we can't fight. We reject it because we know exactly how well we can. The amphitheater remained silent for a long moment before erupting in questions. But among the senior military leaders present, a new understanding was dawning. Humanity hadn't just revolutionized warfare, they had demonstrated why it should be the last resort, not the first option. The Kraxan High Command's war room buzzed with nervous energy as their leaders watched the tactical displays with mounting horror. In the 3 months since the New Horizon incident, human forces had systematically dismantled every offensive operation launched against their territories. But it wasn't the defeats that terrified the Kraxan leadership, it was the pattern of victory. Supreme Warlord Drax, his exoskeleton bearing the scars of 1,000 battles, studied the latest battle footage with his 4 primary eyes. They're not just defeating us, he rumbled. They're teaching us. The assembled commanders shifted uncomfortably. Each engagement with human forces had followed a similar pattern, innovative tactics that exposed specific weaknesses, precisely calculated damage to critical systems, and then, mercy. The humans never pressed their advantage to destroy retreating forces. Instead, they left their opponents with exactly enough resources to return home and report their findings. Another transmission from their diplomatic corps, announced Communications Director Vex. They're still requesting a peace summit. Drax's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. The human strategy had become clear. Each battle was a carefully crafted lesson, demonstrating not just their military capabilities, but their restraint. They weren't fighting to conquer or destroy, they were fighting to educate. "Show me the new Shanghai engagement again," he ordered. The holographic display shifted to show their most recent defeat. A Kraxan battle fleet, pride of the Empire's northern arm, had attempted to overwhelm the human colony's defenses through sheer numbers. The results had been instructive. The humans had introduced something they called adaptive swarm tactics. Their ships and drones didn't just coordinate, they evolved their strategies in real time, learning from each attempt to breach their lines. The Kraxan fleet's numerical advantage had become meaningless as their formations were split, isolated, and systematically disabled. Analysis of captured data packets, reported Intelligence Chief Kira, her crystalline form vibrating with excitement. The humans were running combat simulations during the battle itself. Each engagement was a test scenario, helping them perfect their responses to our tactics. They turned our assault into a training exercise, Drax realized. While we were trying to break their defenses, they were using us to improve their combat algorithms. He paused, mandibles twitching. And then they let our ships retreat with the data intact. A junior commander stepped forward. "Supreme Warlord, I've completed the analysis you requested. Correlation between human battle tactics and their historical records." "Show me." The display split into multiple screens, showing ancient human battles alongside their recent space engagements. The patterns were undeniable. Naval warfare techniques from their Second World War adapted for three-dimensional space combat. Guerrilla tactics from their jungle conflicts repurposed for asteroid field operations. Even their drone swarms mimicked the arrow volleys of their medieval armies, creating zones of denied space through calculated trajectory patterns. "They're not inventing new strategies," Drax mused. "They're applying eternal principles in new ways. Every tactic we've encountered was tested and refined through thousands of years of their own conflicts." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. The Kraxan Empire had prided itself on military superiority, but they had been fighting the same way for generations. The humans brought something far more dangerous than advanced technology or superior numbers, they brought innovation itself as a weapon. "Your orders, Supreme Warlord?" Intelligence Chief Kira asked quietly. Drax rose to his full height, his decision made. "Contact their diplomatic corps. Accept the peace summit." His secondary eyes narrowed. "But first, I want every scrap of data from these encounters analyzed. Not just the tactical data, everything. Their communication patterns, their resource allocation, their decision-making processes." "You wish to learn their weaknesses?" a commander asked eagerly. "No," Drax replied. "I wish to learn their wisdom. They've been offering us something far more valuable than territory or resources. They've been offering us evolution." He turned to face his assembled leaders, his voice carrying the weight of centuries of Kraxan military tradition. "We thought ourselves the galaxy's greatest warriors because we had perfected a single path of warfare. The humans have shown us that true mastery comes not from perfection, but from adaptation. Not from strength alone, but from the wisdom to know when not to use it." The tactical displays continued to replay the battles, but now the Kraxan leaders watched them with new eyes. Each defeat was a lesson. Each act of mercy was a message. The humans hadn't just beaten them, they had opened their eyes to new possibilities. "Prepare a full diplomatic delegation," Drax commanded. "And include our top military theorists. If the humans are willing to teach, we must be willing to learn." He paused, his mandibles forming what his species considered a smile. "After all, they've already given us our first lesson. True victory lies not in destroying your enemy, but in transforming them into allies." One standard galactic year after the New Horizon incident, the Grand Chamber of the Hegemony Council bore witness to an unprecedented gathering. Representatives from every major civilization stood together as humanity formally presented their petition for membership in the galactic community. High Admiral Vila Zyrax, who had first assessed humanity as a minimal threat, now stood as their primary advocate. Her crystalline form resonated with frequencies of pride and humility as she addressed the assembly. Esteemed council, one cycle ago, we made a grave error in judgment. We mistook humanity's commitment to peace as a sign of weakness. Today, we gather to recognize it as their greatest strength. The holographic displays activated, showing not battles this time, but the aftermath. Human medical ships treating wounded Kraxan warriors. Earth's universities opening their doors to alien military strategists. Joint defense exercises between former adversaries. Ambassador Teresa Santos of Earth stepped forward, her silver hair and weathered face reflecting decades of diplomatic service. We come before you not as conquerors, though we have proved our capability in warfare. Not as teachers, though we have shared our knowledge freely. We come as partners in building a more secure and peaceful galaxy. The chamber stirred as Supreme Warlord Drax himself rose to speak, his massive form commanding attention. The Kraxan Empire has fought countless species across 3 spiral arms. We have conquered, subjugated, and destroyed. But humanity did something no other species has done, they made us think. Drax's mandibles clicked in their version of respectful amusement. They defeated our forces not through superior firepower, but through superior understanding. They spared our retreating ships not from weakness, but from wisdom. And when we finally agreed to peace talks, they offered something unprecedented, a chance to evolve. The displays shifted to show the newly established Joint Military Evolution Center on Mars, where species from across the galaxy now train together, sharing their unique perspectives and abilities. Kraxan warriors teaching close combat techniques to human marines. Human strategists helping Nexian fleet commanders develop adaptive battle algorithms. Crystalline beings like Vila working with Earth scientists to merge biological and technological warfare innovations. Grand Arbiter Nolox, his energy form pulsing with approval, addressed the chamber. Humanity has demonstrated something we had forgotten in our long history, that true strength lies not in the ability to destroy, but in the wisdom to know why we shouldn't. Teresa stepped forward again. We propose a new approach to galactic security. Not through dominance or deterrence alone, but through mutual understanding and respect. Every species brings unique strengths and perspectives. Together, we can create defense strategies that make aggressive war not just costly, but obsolete. The displays showed the results of this new philosophy. Joint fleet exercises where ships from different species worked in perfect harmony, combining their unique technologies and tactics. New defensive systems developed through cross-species collaboration. But most importantly, it showed something the galaxy had never seen before, former enemies training together, learning from each other, growing stronger through cooperation rather than competition. This is humanity's true gift to the galaxy, Vila announced. Not our military innovations, though they are significant. Not our tactical doctrines, though they have revolutionized warfare. Our gift is the understanding that the strongest defense comes not from weapons or walls, but from turning potential adversaries into steadfast allies. The council chamber erupted in a chorus of approval expressed in 100 different ways, clicking mandibles, pulsing energy forms, resonating crystals, and humanoid applause all blending together in a symphony of unity. As the formal ceremony concluded, Teresa found herself standing with Vila and Drax in one of the chamber's quiet alcoves. "You know," she said softly, "there's an ancient human saying, si vis pacem, para bellum, if you want peace, prepare for war. A philosophy many species share," Drax noted. Teresa smiled. "But we've learned to add another line, si vis pacem, intellige bellum, if you want peace, understand war. Not just how to wage it, but why to avoid it. Not just how to win it, but how to end it. Not just how to fight, but how to forgive." Vila's crystalline form shimmered with realization. "That's what we saw in your eyes during first contact. Not fear of war, but understanding of its true cost," Teresa finished. "And now, together, we can work to ensure that cost never needs to be paid again." The three representatives stood together, watching as the chamber below buzzed with activity, dozens of species that had been enemies now working together, learning from each other, growing stronger through unity rather than conquest. Humanity's greatest victory hadn't come from defeating their enemies, but from transforming the very nature of victory itself.